Good morning. This is Kathy for Getting Chatty with Kathy. I want to thank you all for joining us here on CJTR, Regina's Community Radio. Today we have a wonderful guest with us who's going to give us some great information about what's going on around Regina. Today we have Councillor Jason Mancinelli here with us, and I am just so happy to have you here. So to get us started, I'm just going to tell you the brief few things that I know about you. I know you're a councillor here in the city. Thank you for your time and putting all your effort into that, because that would be a huge job. And then on top of that, you're a body shop owner, right?
No, actually, auto repair, mechanical.
Auto
yeah.
Body.
No
auto body.
So auto bodies, all to do with like fixing up after an accident or rust or bumpers. I fix stuff like brakes, engines, computer problems, electrical issues.
Oh, like the components within it.
Components. Yeah, your car's not starting, you come to me. Or if the radio's not working, I get that looked after. Or the window doesn't roll down. Or
you
all
fix
that
it.
Kind of stuff. Yeah.
So how did you get into that?
I was always, from a kid, very interested in taking things apart and seeing how they work. And I don't know, I was raised with an intent that if you're going to find something and it needs a little bit of care, you should leave it in better shape than you found it. So I've always kind of approached that. I like to fix things.
Cool.
I like to figure out what makes them go and make them go better.
Okay, so there's one thing to like fixing things, which is definitely a skill set in its own, but then to own a business of fixing things is another skill set. So how did you go from I like fixing things to starting your own business?
Well, I really enjoyed the trade, and I was very passionate about what I did, and I enjoy cars. I understand the way the industry works. The new technology all the time I found very intriguing. But what I also found was that when I was a young man, people didn't really respect trades. You know, if you didn't have university credentials, you had a serious ceiling above your head. And in my life, I wasn't satisfied with that. I was always a little bit more entrepreneurial. I thought that I saw some deficiencies in the industry for the way trades were treated, and I capitalized on them, and I started to shop off those beliefs, and it's been very, very rewarding for me. And I got a great staff, and I try to really mentor and take pride in what we do.
So how many years has that been?
I've been a mechanic for 33 years now. Yeah, 33 years.
There you go. So you're doing your mechanic thing, and then how did you get into politics? Where did that come into play?
I've always, from I believe grade 5, avidly followed politics. I had a really unique education. I had a learning disability. Yeah, for me, I have a real problem with getting my thoughts to writing. It's almost like I stutter in my mind when I try to write things down. So it led to some problems in school, and that led to finding out that I actually had a pretty big intellect, and I had to go to the gifted program. And with that, they always followed current events, and throughout my tenure going to the gifted program, it wasn't just that. I went to normal school and actually learning assistance, and that taught me how to fight going to those two things as well.
But
anyways,
I feel like this was actually your superpower almost here.
Yeah, it exposed me to politics, and it made me aware of a lot of world events at a young age, and a lot of information that way. And like I'm a tradesman. I've lived a very simple life, but with that I've always paid attention, and I don't really feel that I've ever followed or wanted to follow someone else in partisan politics, because I like pragmatic decisions. So that led me to being interested in municipal, because that's really where the rubber meets the road, and you're responsible to the guy you're going to see in the grocery store the following day after the meeting. And I thought that would lead to, it was a more grounded room, and I think more meaningful to me.
Definitely at the grassroots.
Yeah, totally. So always followed politics because the weirdness of what started up, and with that, it just evolved. When I went into business, because of my deficiencies as well, I've always taken on a business partner, and as things progressed and staff grew, you don't start things to just stay the same all the time, and I guess that was part of growing as a person too.
Cool. So you started as a counselor in the last, how many years have you been doing that?
7 years now.
7 years.
Yeah.
So was it just 7 years ago, minus your time to election, did you just wake up and say, you know what, I'm really interested in this, I'm going to put my hat in the ring?
I was really scared because of my age, my responsibilities to my employees and my partner.
Did you feel like you were too young?
Well, I'm nowhere near retiring. I didn't come from money. I don't come from like an inheritance that way to have started a business. So everything is what I've made. And when you start out at something when you're 42, 43, you're not ready to step back or anything like that. So I had to look out for both myself, my family, my employees, and make sure that I had the capacity to do what I thought I could do and work through it. I was scared of that like crazy because I didn't want to overshoot my capability.
Mm-hmm. And your business partner, I imagine, had to be on board.
Yeah. No, that was a thing too at the time, and yeah, so it came to the point where the election was coming, and I was so unsure, and then who really thinks that I can do this even, right? And I thought that the best way to challenge a dilemma is to make it impossible. So that's what I did. When I first ran, I thought about it well ahead of the election. I thought about it through the whole sign-up period of the election. I really centered my thoughts in 24 hours before the final point of dropping your papers off. I've never been a social media guy, but I put out a Facebook post just to ask. I thought, there's a challenge right there. Can you grab because $50 to put your name in is nothing, right?
Right.
But can I get enough signatures in a
Quick
no time period?
That'll
test the confidence people have for my ability and maybe give me the confidence needed to do this. So that's how I played it out, and that's what I did. And it was a pretty exciting day in my household. Everyone thought I was crazy at the same time, wondering if we'd get the signature.
Goodness.
I cleared it in a couple hours, so that really kind of let me know that if I buckled down, I had a chance.
Fantastic. So the election comes, you get on.
Yeah, that was a weird election too, because the incumbent passed away 2 weeks in. And I wasn't sure how to start to debate an incumbent. There was many things that I was angry about, but whole learning your etiquette on a shop floor in a school ground. I don't know.
I don't know if there is.
Prepare you for proper debate on a political level, and I once again wasn't sure if I was up to the challenge because I had never been tested that way.
So you leaned in.
I leaned in, and I think because the area I'm representing is somewhere where I've generally always lived.
You knew their voice.
Man, a lot of these people, I was their paper boy in the 80s. They come to realize it after I get talking to them and stuff. But when I walk out of some of these houses, I remember collecting at them, right? So, I think that just that being part of the community all the time, and then along with the whole business side of things, and kind of having a little prominence from that, just led in that way.
So, business owner, now turned new councillor, and I imagine you were a councillor because there are things that have been happening in the city change happens in all cities all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 years ago, what was going on and was motivating you to have a voice?
I didn't feel we were leaning into our problems. I really felt that there was a lot of easy decisions being made, but maybe not responsible ones. And I know that the last thing I ever wanted to do in my life was have a lot of regrets, so if I thought I could do better, I should try it and go for it, and that's, the motivations. These decisions are really hard. I'll tell you, after being on council, I cannot answer a question in 20 seconds because the information is pretty diverse, but once in a while, those decisions are made in 20 seconds because of feelings, and I think that's harmful to futures, so I try my best not to be that way.
So it's funny because Jason here has a shirt on that and I gotta read it to y'all. It says, "Ask me about a renewable Regina." So there's my question for you right now. I have to ask that. So this is a big topic right now in the city because I believe all of the municipalities in Canada are directed to have a mandate to reduce their emissions by a certain percentage by a certain date. And I'm not quoting either the percentage or the dates because I'm not 100% sure on either.
Let's keep this whole radio show that way because I don't want to fumble a date and make myself a liar.
Okay.
I have a really good timeline for roundabouts, but if you ask me what time, what exact date, I'm going to screw it up.
I am too, and the name of the person. So renewable energy though, and renewable anything really, or reusable, is such a hot topic for our city. I know when we got rid of the plastic bags before COVID, and then they came back and it was just a big hoo-ha. Now we're back to being able to focus on something like this again because I think our priorities are getting there again. Tell me about Renewable Regina.
Okay, well, I guess it's more of a mindset at the end of the day. Like you said, we have some pretty large global goals. And it's not just Regina goals, they're across the globe. And I guess from how I've come to understand that in my mind with what I've been exposed to, it becomes important not just for the future of future generations and their health and happiness, but also for, what we're experiencing globally in the immediacy, right? These type of problems are a global problem. They're what affect our trade relations. They're what dictate, what we sell our goods for and how successful we are on a day-to-day level as a community. So I know it's not the most popular topic always in Regina, or something that we think we can control on a global scale because of our small population. But at the end of the day, the world's compromised by every individual.
Everybody makes an impact.
And I think that whether it seems so immediate compared to some of the larger players or not, if we're going to have a successful world going forward, it means we just have to use some of the technology we've developed as a very advanced race and move forward with it. To stagnate on a past is not something that's ever brought us forward as a civilization or as a country or as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, Renewable Regina means sometimes I look to the past for some of the lessons, reuse, fix, don't replace just because. That's all my grandparents would think. That came out of, the people who were the sodbusters here, lived through the dirty 30s. There's a lot to be said for that, because it's both economically advantageous. I've lived through that in my life, having built what I built from
the broken things.
And humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Not too humble. Like I was never a hard to do family or anything like that. But
Right.
just you come to realize that some people, they kind of, it's easier to open a business at 30 for some than others.
Oh, for sure.
That's all. And I think that mindset carrying forward also starts to help things out with like trash and waste.
Our new compost bins that everybody just got.
Yeah. Oh man, change is hard sometimes. A lot of people are quite worked up about it. But once again, when you're exposed to all the information, so just right now at our landfill, we're doing that methane to electricity project. I think it's a megawatt that it makes. They're going for 2. And what they're doing is, because we mix all our trash together, and that thing's put together like a beehive with little honeycombs in it, so it doesn't leach down and contaminate all our water, or our land or our futures. They have to follow engineering grades, build these beehive cones or honeycombs, and every one of them they have to pipe out to capture the methane to take it to the turbine. And that means you're building a capturing pipeline manifold throughout, how many acres the dump is. So just by us having the action of separating, the landfill can now be filled with non-rotting items that don't give the gas off like those items do.
Cement and metals and stuff like that.
And all that stuff we're capturing gas to make electricity. Well, we just saved a bunch of gas for the vehicles and the equipment needing to make that stuff. We're making more energy because we're better capturing it. And the byproducts, instead of sitting in there until some advanced civilization comes back to find out what went on 2,000 years ago, if they ever do, well, that goes back to fertilizer that we use anyways. And so sometimes things just make smart sense, but they're hard to get started to do. And I think that's the case here. It's awkward to have an extra bin on your property. I had a picture of a guy with maggots in his bin already. And for the life of me, I thought they just rolled those things out. Like, I think that I watched CSI enough times that I remember it's like 7 days for a maggot to grow.
How did they get magnets?
I'm thinking, how did he get that? Like, but that's the kind of things a councillor you get to see, and people with really slighted views trying to really, sharpen
push their agenda.
And at the end of the day, what I'm trying to achieve is I don't want people to pay an extra, as a community, $7 to $10 million a year to decommission a garbage dump that could potentially have decades and decades of life left, and then wonder where our tax dollars go. I want to be efficient on every aspect, not just for the money, but for the outcomes and for better. I guess the simplest way is littering. We always have stuff in the ditches. We always have litter. How many people who readily say they litter?
Nobody
Where
litters.
does it come from, right? So I think that it's that behavior we have to really entice people to adapt, that we can all do better, and we are better, and we're worth better.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be a crap hole.
I think our councillors, it's your job to help guide us, for sure, because people really don't do it on their own most of the time. They do need a little jiggling. One policy, don't quote me, it's in Europe, but what they're trying to do now is if you build a fridge And if it craps out in 5 years, it's the company that built the fridge that has to actually like decommission it.
Engineered obsolescence.
Yes. So it's not just there's actual value in it, and they have to take care of it. So maybe people's, when they're building it, and the purchasing power changes a little bit that way.
I think you really hit it there with the purchasing power. When people don't pay attention to their purchases, and manufacturers can do things like that's a real problem, and those problems lead to our landfills and to what we see from problems in the climate.
Like, so why did a fridge last 40 years before, and now it lasts 5? It's just, it's not correct. People are making money off of people that could make better quality products.
Totally. So here's something I'll share that I learned in my own trade. I always heard the legend of the million-mile engine that the manufacturer bought back, and it's true. But if you pay attention to what's going on, like a motor out of the 1970s was enough metal to cut through its life probably 7 times and rebuild. And as a tradesman working on those cars, no one rebuilt those cars because of the amount of money it would cost compared to the value of the vehicle for our purchasing habits.
I didn't know that.
Excuse me. So when you're paying per liter of gas, and you're carrying extra metal for the life of a vehicle, which could be hundreds of thousands a mile, yeah, you know what? You get better gas mileage if you can shave a couple hundred pounds off a vehicle, and a lot of that reverse engineering was to find out where they could shave and still get life out of. But that also meant that you didn't have the car that could go that far.
Longevity.
And I think because we're humans, we have to learn as we go. This is finding that sweet spot between wasteful consumerism and extended longevity that's beyond reason, right? So I think that we have to learn and change, and positively, and I don't look at that change as a problem. I take it in a pragmatic fashion. I knew a lot of stuff before I thought I knew. I was wrong a lot before, and I learned a lot of stuff that I use now. And some of it's changed, and some of it, it's the way life.
Definitely. And sometimes the hardest things are the things that we learn the most from. I cannot have a counselor here and not talk about a few topics that us as residents are interested in.
For sure.
So let me hit you up with a few, okay? You don't have to go too deep because I got a few. So what's your thoughts on the rail crossing on the ring road?
I thought I told you we wouldn't talk about trains. I'm just joking.
I have to. I hate that train.
Yeah. So here again, mechanic Jason. I have a shop right beside railroad tracks, and I've watched it for over a decade. And in my head, becoming a counselor, when they talk about all of this green technology and everything else, I would get so mad because I would count how many blocks of cars, how many minutes the train ran, and I would roughly estimate the size of the vehicles and figure out the fuel consumption of that idling period for how much we wasted as
That's going on in your brain?
That's what I was
I'm so happy you're a counselor. I'm so happy.
So I was very motivated when we started to talk about trains to get them out of the way.
Yes, and they're dangerous.
Exactly, and that's when I had the reality of life set in. Okay, railroads were across the country before the country was a country.
Yeah, it made her a country.
Our country and every country is set up on the agreements, handshakes, contracts, treaties that they all sign as they go, and they are all chronological, right? So them being a head of a municipality that showed up after the fact have first right to land, and them being a corporation means they're not going to give up their money for corporate profit or for asset management or to feed up to the government when it used to be government owned, to start buying different land to move their own tracks.
So hold on a second, you're telling me that the railway owns the tracks because they were here first, and now the city's moved around it, and why on earth would they just want to move it?
Where would they get the money? Because we've all heard train stories for my lifetime and on how they've struggled. I know they've made a bit of a comeback now, but where would they get the money as a company? Because every municipality has tracks through it. We always talk about Regina because we live here, but I drove across Canada.
It's true. It's the
if
center of a
lot
of cities.
When you're on an island, not so much tracks. If you're in Winnipeg, if you're in Saskatoon, if you're lots of tracks, because that's commerce and that's what builds cities. So I actually think that Regina has a leg up on this right now for the first time, and against the rest of Canada, to tell you the truth. Because business is what makes things move at the end. We have social values in our country, but we're corporate driven.
Yeah.
And right now we have the very, very welcomed investment from some of the alternative energy companies and different ways of doing things we talked about earlier. And with that's billions invested into the northeast corner of the city. And those type of businesses need access to tracks because tracks are commerce. So I think for the first time we might actually have an actual chance to move the tracks on Ring Road by Winnipeg Street, and I'm pretty sure that it should happen, because as a councillor I can't collect enough taxes off people just to make them happy with that, because I will break them and make more people homeless.
Mm-hmm.
But when I have a business opportunity that kind of has
a case for it.
well, let's go back to 2000 synergy. That
Yes.
synergy carries it through, and
Yeah.
it makes it move for both entities. So yeah, I think that might be something that pulls those tracks away from there. But the ones on Albert Street, or the ones that those don't go to, some businesses depend on the spur lines that come off those tracks though.
That's true, because
So-
it definitely brings the businesses right there.
Yeah, so I'd love to move all the tracks. Like I said, I've done a lot of calculation in my head about the wasted energy at a train stop over the time, over the danger. And
I didn't realize that they would have to help assist that funding too. You brought up another topic that I have to bring
I
up.
hope I explained that properly, because remember,
did.
You're talking to a mechanic. I have assigned things in my head that I've learned as knowledge, but I don't have a written doctorate or a certificate or anything like that, so I hope it was an adequate explanation.
That's a perfect.
Don't get anyone astray.
No. So, homelessness. I have to talk about homelessness. My kids were at the YWCA this summer at a camp, and so I had to drive to the YW every day for a week, and it was during the time that the camp was there. Actually, it was during also a time where somebody was taken away because they had an overdose. So it was definitely something that my kids saw, and it was very eye-opening for them. I think that there's a problem in our city with homelessness, and I would love to hear about where you see it going in our city, what your hopes are, what you think we can do, what can't we do, what I can do as an individual. Just help me out here.
Okay. So I don't want to correct, but I just want to be really honest, because sometimes if you make it our city, it's only our problem. And I just wanted to reflect that as a councillor, I had to go on a couple of trips.
Yeah.
One to Calgary. We were investigating business improvement districts for how they're funded, to try to see if we could do something.
We gotta look at what other people are doing.
Right.
It's brilliant.
Another one was the same type of a thing to Hamilton. And this is across Canada. This is not Regina. In Regina, it was brought to the head of a needle by some actions of people who have both care but also strong opinions, who brought them to City Hall as activists. So it's been a little bit different for what we experience in Regina because of that. But when it goes to the problem, this isn't a Regina problem.
I agree.
So I just wanted to really clear that up. Now, as for what we do with a big problem like that, and it shouldn't be called a problem because of people, they're people to care for.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it's a problem we experience as, someone who's not entwined in it, but these are people.
Yeah.
Right?
How can we help this community?
I think the first thing we have to do is quit picking sides and quit trying to draw attention to saviors. That's not going to be helpful. Even if I say yes to something, I shouldn't be a loser or a savior. It's working towards solutions.
Yeah.
Secondly, I know that I can't spend my way out of this either as a councillor because of the way taxes are being stacked. Quick way to explain that is, generally, without exception, or very few exceptions in the last 50 years, every year people's income goes up. 1%, 0.5%, 5%, always on an upward tilt. It's not true for properties. Properties devalue and they revalue. All the taxes we collect are off property values. So if it's always having to be corrected for that already over and above the base it's collecting, how do you start incorporating extra expense that's never been worked into the books before?
You have to take away something else.
And there's nothing we can take away because our problems are things like that we're responsible for: roads, water treatment plants, amenities that make families happy, part of our city. Do we really need a new swimming pool? Yeah, the old one's older than me, and the asset management on it is way more than it's worth, and it doesn't fit the population we have now. So those are the kind of things that hinge decision. And there again, the whole time we've been through the homeless debate, these things have been put at each other. That's not helpful. Success in the city means people are happy, means it lifts everyone up, and it means the solutions are easier to implement because people are more helpful instead of fighting each other.
Definitely.
That's one of the big things for me.
So funding comes from various places when we have, people that are experiencing homelessness. So I know, as a municipality, that hasn't generally been what some of our dollars would go towards, but temperatures are changing in municipalities because people do want to help. Has the funding through the province and the federal government reduced a lot lately as well? I just don't know. I don't pay attention enough.
Well, funding through the province and the feds, it's been there, you know, but for the primary stage of houselessness, it's not quite there yet. And oftentimes, you know, there's a recipe there, you know. If I had my way, it'd be half and half from those two, but it's not reasonable. So
Yeah.
it's generally roughly 70 to 80% compromised to the other two levels of government, and we come with between a third, and, you know.
Wow.
And
And that's probably been increasing, I imagine.
No, not really. That's kind of been
The amount of
expected at one
people though that are needing this, it's
the
been
need is
increasing.
increasing
Yeah,
for sure, and
yeah.
a lot of that's through pandemic and outcomes from pandemic as well. In Saskatchewan, there were some decisions made in terms of social services that affected people.
Yes.
I know those were real things that are affecting us deeply. I think the city's spend in this, you know, we've always backed and encouraged charitable organizations to deal with these problems. We don't have the staff or any type of a mental health department or a health department. We control property taxes, but the properties we have are for, you know, use of the public abroad, and the asset management behind individual properties is something we can take on for one-offs of, you know, assuming these empty houses and giving to people.
Right.
Because there's a whole management chain behind that. So I think that the city's job in this is to know its residents. It's to try to measure the problem, the intensity, the type of needs. It's to measure the social structure of charitable organizations, their ability to react to this and see if some of them are strong enough to handle it. And it's to help them grow to the point where they can handle it. If all of a sudden tomorrow the government of Canada launched a new department of houselessness across all provinces and funded it, like, we could be in and do that and take that money and set something up, but those things aren't real. They're not a reality. And on top of it all, to get three levels of government to agree and agree publicly through all of the negotiations, I know for a fact the last thing you do is talk about it publicly. So I know that I'm talking about it a bit now, but most of this will happen because we can put egos aside, get into a room and talk about the actual people that are experiencing the problem, not put them on display, but help them through it. And those are the type of actions that actually fix problems. If you ever want to put your name to fixing the problem, you're not going to fix the problem because you're more interested in your name.
Right.
You want to fix
Working
things,
together.
keep your mouth shut, work hard, and stuff will disappear.
Well, I know that there is a group of people here in the city that definitely want to see things be as great as they possibly can be.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to have a conversation with somebody who takes the city very seriously, the role that you have. And I really, really want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us
No
today.
problem. I don't often do this, so I felt comfortable to come talk to you. And once again, like I just said, you know, I'm here to help work on problems. Once in a while, if there's something important to say, you have to open your mouth because that's the position. But yeah, I don't want to run around being the mouthpiece on everything. I want to try to work quietly through different opinions and not agitate them and find, you know, comparable middle grounds where everyone comes out somewhat happy and happy to move through a problem.
Compromise is king. Well, thank you for those of you who sat down with us today to listen to Jason and I chit chat. Look forward to talking again. Be well.